We've all been there, right? You're signing up for something and you're immediately hit with this long list of rules for your password. But then you turn on the news and hear about another massive data breach. And you just have to wonder, if hackers are still getting in, what is the point of all these rules anyway?
Okay, so picture this. You're setting up a new account, you get to that password field, you type in something you think is pretty clever, something you'll actually remember for once, and bam, rejected. You get that all too familiar list of demands. It has to be longer, it needs a capital letter, oh, and a number, and a symbol. The frustration is, well, it's real.
So you let out a little sigh and you go back and start tinkering with it. You capitalize the first letter, maybe you tack on your birth year at the end, swap an S for a dollar sign. You're basically just playing this little game until the system finally gives in. And there it is, the little green check mark. Success. But this is where things get interesting. Because even after we jump through all those hoops, we're still hearing constantly about huge companies and millions of users getting hacked. So that's really the big question we're tackling today. If these super complex passwords aren't some kind of perfect shield, why are we even forced to create them? What are they really for? To get to the bottom of it, we actually need to take a step back in time. All right, so let's dig into how we even got here. You see, the whole history of passwords is completely tied to the history of people trying to break them. Back in the early days of computers, passwords like 12345 or even just the word password were totally normal. And that's because attacks were slow. A person literally had to sit there and guess them one by one. But as computers got ridiculously powerful, so did the attacks. We went from a person guessing a few passwords to automated programs that can test billions of combinations every single second. So, to fight back against this new threat, the security experts came up with what seemed like a really simple solution: password complexity rules. The whole idea was to fight raw computing power with mathematical complexity. Just to put that into perspective, take a simple 8-letter password with only lowercase letters. That has about 200 billion possible combinations. Now, that sounds like a massive number, but for a modern computer, that's child's play. They can burn through that in no time. But watch what happens when you start following the rules. By adding just one uppercase letter, a number, and a symbol, that number explodes from 200 billion all the way to over 3 quadrillion. That makes a hacker's job exponentially harder and longer. And in the world of cybersecurity, anything that makes an attacker waste more time is a huge win. So the math works out. More complexity should mean more security. Case closed, right? Well, not quite. Because there was one big, unpredictable variable that the system just couldn't control: us. See, we humans, we're creatures of habit. When we're faced with complex rules, we find the simplest, laziest possible shortcuts. We create these predictable patterns. We'll take a common word, capitalize the first letter, and then add a number and an exclamation point to the end. I mean, these passwords look complex, but hackers know these patterns just as well as we do, and they program their bots to try these common formulas first. And that brings up another huge problem. Why spend weeks trying to break down a door when you can just trick someone into handing you the key? Hackers figured out it's often way easier to attack the person than it is to attack the system. This is called phishing. You get a really convincing-looking email from your bank, you click a link, enter your password on a fake website, and just like that, it doesn't matter how complex your password was. You just gave it away. And the other giant human weakness is that we reuse passwords. I mean, who can remember a unique, complex password for the hundreds of accounts we all have? So we use the same one or a slight variation everywhere. And the danger here is this massive domino effect. Some small, insecure website you signed up for years ago gets breached. Now your email and password are out in the wild. Attackers grab that combo and immediately try it on your bank, your email, your social media, and all of a sudden, one tiny leak becomes a complete disaster for you. Okay, so if we humans just create predictable patterns and hackers can easily trick us, that brings us right back to our original question. Why on earth do we even bother with these rules at all? And here's the real answer. We have to change the way we think about password rules. They aren't supposed to be a perfect, impenetrable fortress. Think of them as the first, outermost wall of a castle. Now, that wall isn't going to stop a long, determined siege all by itself, but it serves a really important purpose. That first wall is incredibly good at stopping the most common lowest-effort attacks. It blocks those massive automated bots that are just endlessly trying password and 123456 on millions of accounts. It stops the absolute weakest passwords from ever being used in the first place, which raises the basic level of security for everyone. Honestly, without that wall, things would be so much worse.
And that idea brings us right to where we are today. The security industry knows that one wall just isn't enough anymore. The future of keeping us safe isn't about building one perfect defense. No, it's all about layers. This is exactly why you see stuff like two-factor authentication or 2FA popping up everywhere. The idea is that even if a hacker gets your password, even if they breach that first wall, they still need a second key. That could be a code from your phone, your fingerprint, or your face. Every single layer makes the attacker's job harder, more expensive, and a lot more time-consuming.
And that really leaves us with this final crucial idea. The goal of cybersecurity isn't necessarily to become totally unhackable. In our digital world, winning often just means being a more difficult target than the person next to you. And those password rules, as annoying as they are the very first step in making yourself a harder target. They are that simple, essential first wall in a much bigger defense. So the next time you're reluctantly adding that exclamation point, you'll know exactly why it's there.